Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, where you are. My name is Nelson. Before I continue, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay, great. Uh, great. Okay, so thank you for joining the session today. It has been a while since we held such sessions, and it's good to see all of you once again. Just a brief background about myself. My name is Nelson Garissa. I'm originally from Kenya, but I'm based out of Dubai. I work for PMI, and this is just one of the initiatives that we run in the Sub-Saharan Africa region, where we assist candidates to uh, study and prepare for the PMP exam. I know most of you either almost sitting for your PMP exams or are still in the process and you still are not ready to book for your exam and all that. So we're here to handhold you and support you through the process until you're able to sit for your PMP exam and pass your exams. We've been doing this for 2 years now, but this year we have really really gotten into it, and we've been able to support a lot of candidates. We've have a WhatsApp group where candidates like you are there. Most of you are already there, but some of you have just joined. Um, some of you are not even aware that there is a WhatsApp group that existed. So now you know there's a WhatsApp group and it's very active. We have two groups. All of them are very active. There's lots of questions that are shared every day, and most of which are from study hall and other material. And there's discussions that go on. On top of that, we have this PMP webinar reviews where we have authorized training providers that come here and take us through specific topics. Like for today, we are going to work on mastering project success, and this will be building shared understanding, managing budgets, and optimizing schedules. So each webinar will cover a different topic. And as you know, the content for PMP is really huge. We can't cover everything in a single meeting, not even in a week. So every webinar will be covering something different. The instructor will normally go through the content and then ask questions. There's normally questions where you are able to answer some tests where the instructor will share, and then you'll have a chance to ask a question towards the end of the session. So for those asking about the WhatsApp group, we'll share a link on the chat. But if you received my email, there was a link on that email as well to join the WhatsApp group, but we'll also share it on the chat here shortly. So that's a brief background of what this PMP webinar is all about. And it happens every week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we've resumed from today. Hopefully we'll have another session on Thursday, and then next week we'll have two more as well up to the end of this month. Okay, so that's a brief background of what these sessions are all about. But for now, we mostly start by you know where I'm coming from, you know what I do. Now it's your time to post on the chat. Just post where you are, where you're from, where you're joining us from, and when you're sitting for your PMP exam. We want to make this as interactive as possible before we pass it on to the instructor to take on the content. Yeah, so let's hear where you are from. Oh, I see someone can't hear anyone. So what you can do is, let me just type for you. But in the meantime, let's just type in the chat and just say where you're from and when you're sitting for your PMP exam. Okay. Nairobi, Kenya, South Africa, we have Cameroon, we have South Africa, Uganda, Nigeria. I'm seeing most November and December. We don't have anyone for tomorrow this month. So November, we have Djibouti, we have Lagos, we have Canada. Okay, we have Malawi. Okay, we have Johannesburg, Nigeria. Okay, this is good. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Just checking if instructor is here. Esther, are you ready? Are you here with us now?
Yes, I am.
Great. We'll get to you shortly. Okay, so we have Nigeria, we have Zimbabwe. Okay, great. All right, so keep them coming. We want the sessions to be very interactive. Network. If you see someone sitting for the PMP exam at the same time as you are, reach out to them, connect. Most of the people are doing that in the WhatsApp group. Connect with them if you want to have a study buddy. You can do that as well. But for now, I would like to introduce Esther. Esther is from Nigeria and is going to take us through the session today. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nelson. Grateful for having me here. All right, so I'll just put up my screen shortly. I have 2 hours, right? Or let's say 1 hour, 45 minutes. Mr. Nelson? Yes. Okay.
Yes,
Cool,
yes.
cool, cool. All right. So I'll just put up my camera, but I mean my camera might go on and off in between for just to ensure that we have a good network. All right. So good afternoon, morning, evening. I don't know where, I mean, I know we're all joining from different places. I'm currently joining from Nigeria and it's past 6 p.m. here. Okay, Moses, I can see your hands up. Do you have a question already? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Okay, so I'm sure if you have any concerns, just feel free to put it in the comments section, and I know that Nelson will address it. So thank you so much.
Sorry.
It's just a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Esther. Maybe if you can remove your video, just keep the audio because your video is
Okay.
lagging. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see that. I see that. No problem. Thank you.
Right. All right. Cool.
Okay, so this is just, yeah, a little bit about myself. My name is Esther. And okay, I'll just let the profile speak for itself. So however, today we're going to look at 3 main topics. And after that, we're going to do some Q&As. If you have any questions, I will be glad to attend to them. And then I think I have a few exam tips to share as well for those who would be writing soon. So we're going to look at how to build a shared understanding on your project. We're going to look at managing and optimizing your budget alongside your schedule. And then we're going to do a little bit of Q&A. And then if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me as well. All right, so once your project has commenced and you're starting up, one of the first things you have to do is to ensure that all team members, all relevant stakeholders, both internal and external stakeholders, have a common understanding of what the project is all about at the very beginning. This is too important that at this point, you would have identified your stakeholders. But if you haven't, then this is a good point to do that. So whether it's your internal stakeholders, whether it's management, whether it's external stakeholders, whether it's team members, we have to ensure that we all understand why we are here. What is the problem that we're trying to solve? and how is this problem, how is the outcome of it? How is it going to bring about value to the organization? So having a consensus and a shared understanding is so important for the project manager, aligning what are our objectives, who is our project manager, who is going to be the sponsor, everything related to the project, what is our rationale for starting this project, how is it linked to the strategic objective of that particular organization. Because remember, for every time we implement a project, it has to help us achieve the strategic objective of that organization. And so anytime you are even trying to initiate a project and you want to see how do you get management buy-in, just ensure that it aligns with the strategic objective of the organization. So at the very beginning of your project, you have to be able to have a good understanding and build a shared understanding of the project, so that if I ask a team member, if I ask maybe somebody from management, they should be speaking the same language and they should be saying the same thing based on what we're trying to achieve. And as a project manager, you are the leader. So once that vision is handed over to you from management, you have to take it up and ensure that there is a shared understanding. The vision of the project is clear, our why is clear, and everybody understands, and we have some level of buy-in. So you will create the vision statement. For some project, it's already created by the sponsor or by management and handed over to you. But when that is not done, then it is required of you to create the vision of the project, right? To be able to, ask and speak with different stakeholders. For me, I usually advise if we can have a workshop, bring everybody together, workshop, and, come together and agree as to this is exactly why we are starting this project. The why is clear, the expectations are clear, both the realistic ones and the unrealistic ones. Everything needs to be clear. The mandate of the project needs to be clear, because if you do not get the stakeholders buy-in, that will go a long way in either making the project successful or, making the project not successful. So here is where your power skills as a PM comes in, your ability to facilitate, your ability to listen, your ability to communicate sessions. I mean, even bringing in emotional intelligence into your discussion. But the focus should always be that value is given back to the organization. I mean, that is even the reason why we are starting the project in the first place. So the result of this would be for everybody on the team, every stakeholder, to understand why we are here. We are able to even, get their own feedback, get their own expectation. The vision is clear, the objective is clear. We can see how it aligns with what the organization is trying to do, and there is no ambiguity. And even when management is the one that has requested for this project and handed it over to you, you can't assume that everybody has this understanding, right? So you will still need to bring people together, like all the relevant stakeholders. You still need to bring them together to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're starting. What do you think? What's your feedback? And then you are able to gather information and, put it together such that we can all agree that this is what we're trying to do. But most times the vision is given to us, and when it is not, as the PM, you need to work, to create the vision and also get sign off from management. So like I said, first things first, let's even understand what are we trying to do, right? Let us have a good understanding of what we're trying to do without any ambiguity. Let us be able to know that, hey, this is what we're going to cover in this project, and this is what we are not going to cover in this project, right? That should be clear. There shouldn't be any ambiguity. And where we feel that there is no clarity, then we can definitely open the floor up for conversation, so that at the end of the day, we are able to agree as to what we are trying to achieve. So, like I said, speak with your stakeholders, discuss with the stakeholders, and most times you would see that when you don't discuss with them midway the project, they start bringing up, their own expectations. They start bringing up new requirements, and you're wondering, right? And that would only happen if they were not involved very early and in the first place. So ask your stakeholders, collaborate with them, get their input. If you are not clear about what we're trying to achieve, speak with the project sponsor or any management team that you're working directly with. Then most times there are already documents that were created either because sometimes before we get to this point, we would have created things like proof of concepts, feasibility study, business cases, different organizations with what they create as the rationale before they start any project, right? So you can look through some of those analysis if they are available, or even if you have any MOUs and SLAs that has been created and handed over to you, whether it's even a verbal agreement, whether it's a detailed statement of work, whatsoever it is that you have available, any existing agreements that might be available regarding the project, right? This would be a good time for you to look through those documents so that the understanding of what we want to achieve is clear to you as the project manager, and is also clear to your team, who are the people that are going to go to war with you, and it's clear to all the relevant stakeholders that you're working with. So if we have business cases, we have feasibility studies that have been done, we have the proof of concept that has been done. Once we have those, we can always refer to this document just to ensure that that clarity at the beginning of the project is there. So you speak with stakeholders. If you have experts, and when we speak about experts, we're talking about people who have probably been on the project before or something similar, or they have subject matter expertise to share, or they might be technical guys that have done this work before. They will be your great go-to place to tell you that, hey, this is what we've done before, this is the approach I feel we should go. They might be able to share some input that will be useful for you as well, right? So any documents that is available, whether it's agreements, whether you have things like maybe KPIs or quality policy, whatever is relevant per time that is available for you to just look through, because there are times that even the critical success factor or what success will look like, you might find some of these in, some of those earlier documents that were created. So that would be a good place for you to go to, just to be able to have a good understanding of your why, the opportunity, the problem we're trying to solve, any requirement that is necessary would also be captured, right? So your management skills becomes important. You can always help people understand our why. Like the agile team use what we call a product box exercise. So a product box exercise would be, for example, me trying to explain to you what we are trying to achieve as though I am selling a product to you. So I'm sharing the vision to you from the customer perspective. If I'm trying to tell you about a product, I'll tell you, oh, the product we're supposed to create is supposed to do this, is supposed to do that. Let's say it's even a new phone, right? This new phone is going to have 46 hours battery life. The camera lens is going to be this, the design is going to be that. So I am already speaking to you, trying to visualize the project with you, as though I'm a marketer trying to sell that product to you. So sometimes the agile team can use, product box exercise. We can use mind mapping and like really what works for us. But the idea is there would be open communication and everybody's input is received, and we're able to come together to say, okay, we all understand what we are trying to achieve as it relates to their project. And so once all this information is available, we can put it together and we can create our project charter. So I'm sure most of us have done our reading, and I mean, most of us here are already PM, so this is not entirely new to you. So sometimes when I teach, people will tell me that, okay, we don't use a project charter. In my organization, we use statement of work. Some will say we use project brief. PMI would never, would never tell you you have to use this, but they would say that a charter would be created. So whatever is the charter that is acceptable within your industry and within your sector, based on the context of your organization, is totally accepted. Right. So once all these agreements, we've had all our discussions with all the relevant stakeholders, we've had all our meetings, then we can put everything together in a project charter, right? And this is that document that provides a high level information regarding the project. Once I read the charter, I should be able to have a good understanding as to what we're trying to achieve. So the charter, aside from the content, it is that document that would authorize that we can commence the project. It assigns and tells us who our project manager is. It also tells us who the project sponsor is. It tells us the rationale and the business need for the project. And it gives the project manager the go-ahead to request for organizational funds to be used for the project. But remember that the charter is high level. It is not a detailed document. Even though one can argue that there are projects that are quite complex, that their project charter might be more detailed than others. But typically a project charter should be high level. When you go into your planning, then you can create the more detailed information. So usually you have the project sponsor, the project team members, the project description, the business need, the assumptions, the boundaries, the business case. There is no one template to use, right? But there are specific things that, PMI would say that at least in every charter, you should be able to see, right? So, but the charter should be officially signed, and then that's what, gives us an understanding of the project. So once this document is available, it captures our understanding of the project. And even times when maybe you've joined the project and the charter has already been created, you can always go back to it. And once the charter is ready, the next step would be to have a kickoff meeting. So even if for any reason you were not there, information was not solicited from you, but the kickoff meeting should have at least all the relevant stakeholders for the project. Right, and this is where usually the PM will create the presentation and say, hey, this is what we are trying to do. These are the team members that are going to work with me. This is how our project governance looks like, right? This is the vision of the project. These are the key stakeholders. This is what our communication plan looks like, right? If we have, key deliverables, the expected outcome, our high level risks, all of those would be discussed. And once the kickoff meeting happens, after the charter has been signed, it means that now everybody is clear, everybody has a good understanding, and we can go ahead to officially commence the project. All right. So we'll move to schedule. Once I'm done with schedule and budget, if you have any questions, you can ask, and then we can look a bit at the Q&A sessions. I'll just share some tips for the exams, and then we can bring the class to a close. So I will look at schedule briefly. So I'm not going to go into schedule. I'll just focus on what is relevant for what I need to cover. But let me just give a background. When we are looking at scheduling, and I'm going to use this slide to pretty much explain what is expected of us. The scheduling process for the agile and the traditional team is not the same, right? And it's important that we are able to understand, because when you say that I am PMP, it means that if I put you on an agile project, you understand what is required of you. If I put you on a traditional project, you understand what is required of you. So being PMP doesn't necessarily, it's not just about the certificate, is that, it shows competence. And it means that I can, take your words to the bank and you'll be able to get the work done. So understanding how we plan, how we schedule with the agile team, and the traditional team is a bit different, right? So most times when we do the scoping of the project, one of the key steps after you have created your project scope statement would be that you should create your WBS, and this is for the agile, for the traditional team. So creating your WBS would mean you breaking down work into smaller work packages that makes it easy for me to take a particular activity and assign it to an individual to go and implement it, right? So for example, if I say that, okay, Esther, I've given you the activity, I've given you the opportunity to plan a project. So for example, I work with iCentral Solutions. We are an ATP with PMI, and we are planning an AI and sustainability conference. So one of the first in Africa. We are planning that in Nigeria on the 24th of November. So imagine I take and I say, okay, Esther, you have the responsibility to plan the AI and Sustainability Conference. Now, that is huge, right? That on its own is not a task that I can go and implement. It is similar to when we look at maybe maybe further broken down, we look at an epic for the agile team. So planning a conference is a huge thing. Now I have to break it down to the activities that are going to happen. So maybe what will be the pre-conference activities, what will be the activities happening on the day of the conference, and then post-conference. And then when we look at pre-conference, you can further break it down, into, who will be the team that will handle the communication. We have to do communication and publicity. Aside from that, we need to have a project delivery team and a secretariat. We need to have those in charge of partnership. We will further break the activities that need to be done down. And then let's say from the project delivery team, we need to further break it down to, okay, somebody has the responsibility to engage vendors. Then looking at vendors, that is further broken down to, okay, which vendors are we getting, right? Okay, we are going to get somebody who will be in charge of the feeding for that day. We're going to get somebody who will be in charge of the lightning. We're going to get somebody who will be in charge of sound. So you see, I've just taken one component and I'm breaking it down into bits of activities that can be implemented. So if, for example, I pick up somebody from the team, okay, let's say I say Moses, right? Moses, you have the responsibility to go and source the vendor for the feeding. That will be easier for Moses to do because the activity has been broken down. Right, so breaking down of the activity which happens during our WBS becomes important when we come to scheduling because the activities would have already been broken down into work packages. Now, once the activities are broken down, we can then start looking at what is the dependencies of these activities, which one is going to happen first, which activities can happen concurrently, which activity needs to start before another one can finish, which activity needs to finish before another one can start. So we then start looking at the dependency relationship between all our activities, because if you are not able to figure this out, then it's difficult for you to manage your schedule or even plot all of this into your Gantt chart or any tool that you use these days for to be able to manage your project. So you are able to understand the dependencies between your activities, and then you can assign durations to them. And that is where our estimation techniques come in. And we're going to look at the estimation techniques that we can use. So how do I know how long it is going to take for each of these activities to be carried out? Right? Is there historical data? Maybe there was another conference that was organized some years ago, and the work breakdown was done, the duration of activities was assigned, and I can just use that as a starter document. I'm not saying that will be your finalized document, but at least as a starter document, let me know that, okay, this is how it was done the last time, I can adopt it. So we'll look at different ways where we can estimate how long is going to take for each of our activities to be done. And then once that is done, we'll look at our critical parts. And then we can also look at ways where we can, what should we do now? How do we manage our schedule if we find ourselves behind schedule or ahead of schedule? But for the agile team, again, it's a bit different, right? So they would usually have, their epic, and an epic can be a huge deliverable. And then they would, in their planning meeting, because the agile team already work in sprints, and so the agile team don't really focus on creating their schedule because the schedule is somewhat already created, and that's why we do our work in sprints. So they don't estimate, they focus on estimating effort instead of estimating time. So if we have so many activities to do, we know that our sprint is only 1 week or 2 weeks. So the question is, what are the activities that we can complete within the 1 or 2 weeks that we already have? Right? And once we are able to figure that out, then when we have our sprint planning meeting is when we do our breaking down of work from epic to features to user stories. Or sometimes we can say that it's the other way around. And then we are able to go ahead and implement our user story. So that is how the scheduling happens for the agile and traditional teams. So I spoke about estimation techniques. So we have the analogous, which of course is when you use historical data. So like I said, we had a conference last year. We are having another conference this year. Can I use the estimation that was done in the last year's conference? Can I use the budget that was done in the last year's conference? Can I use the WBS that was done in the last year's conference so that I don't have to start this all over again? And that's why um, artifacts management and putting document management, knowledge management, putting your document in a repository becomes very important. So when you're using analogous as a way to estimate, and also to note that these estimation techniques apply for both schedule and for costing. So when you're using your analogous to estimate, you are looking at historical data. So whether it's duration or costing, you are looking at historical data. Then when we use parametric, we are using that historical data, but to try and make our work even much more accurate, we will impute this historical data into a statistical tool, or we can even use maybe an algorithm, right? For some of us here, I mean, during your final year in school, we usually have our project. And sometimes, maybe I will say for mine, when I was doing, I think my undergraduate, I was trying to understand the relationship between unemployment and crime rates in South Africa. And so I got data about unemployment, and I got data about crime rate. Now, those are historical data. And then I imputed those data into a tool called eViews. And eViews was supposed to help, was able to help me to show the relationship between unemployment and crime rate, whether it had a positive or a negative relationship. So when you use analytical tools and algorithm and statistical tool, it provides a more sophisticated accuracy, right, to the work that you are trying to do. Even one of the disadvantages of it would be we don't have a lot of people who have that technical ability to use it. So sometimes the learning curve for your team can be quite low. Then we have I'll come back to the 3-point estimation. We have the bottom-up estimation. So for the bottom-up estimation, what we do is we are literally using our WBS. Our WBS provides a guide for us. So after we've broken down work, like I was giving an example with organizing a conference and your vendors sourcing. If I'm trying to have a good understanding of what is going to cost for all our vendors, I'll first of all get the costing for feeding, and then I'll get the costing for lighting, I'll get the costing for sound, I'll get the costing for branding, and that's the printing of the banners and the setting up and all. I'll get the costing for the ushers that are going to be at the event, right? I'll get the costing for all the little components, and then I'll put them together to give me my costing for the project. So bottom-up estimation is when you are aggregating the costing and the duration for the individual activities, summing up to give you that of the project. It's unlike the top-down approach, whereby I would just say, okay, I'm going to give you guys $10,000 to go ahead and implement this project, right? That's bottom up. That means we have to find a way to figure out how to manage the money you have given us for the project. But if you allow us to do our estimation first, then we can come up with a more realistic budget. And that's why we always say that the bottom up is the most efficient and the most accurate way of doing your estimation. And then of course we have the 3 points estimation. And for your exams, these days there are hardly calculation questions, but when you would find one, it will always be one of the areas where you find calculation questions would be in the area of 3 point estimation. So you need to understand how to calculate whether it's your triangular distribution or your beta or your PERT average, because most times the question will be specific. It's to tell you use the triangular distribution or use the beta distribution. So this is something that you need to know. Once you know the formula, it is easier for you to be able to answer the question. So when we do our 3 point estimation, so I'm going to, okay, I'm not sure that your mics are not activated, so we might not have this as a discussion, but so let me say how long, let's assume I've asked, how long do you guys think it would take for somebody to prepare and write their PMP exams, right? Let's say I ask that question randomly, and then Richard tells me it's going to take 3 weeks for you to train and prepare and write your exams, your PMP exams, right? That will be the feedback from Richard. And then we can have Sunday who would say that, oh, it's going to take you 5 weeks to write and pass your PMP exams. And then we can have Titilola who would say that, no, it's going to take you 10 weeks to write and pass your PMP exam. So you have 3 people who have given you their 3 different estimate as to how long it will take for you to write and pass your PMP exams. So we have Richard with 3 weeks, Sunday with 5 weeks, and we have Titilola with 10 weeks. So usually the shortest duration is our optimistic duration. So Richard has given us our optimistic duration. Then the highest duration is our pessimistic duration, and that was given to us by Titilola. And then we have Sunday, who has given us our most likely. So if you're trying to do an estimate of how long it would take for you to write and pass your PMP exams, then using the triangular formula, you add them together. So it is your most likely plus, your optimistic plus your most likely plus your pessimistic divide by 3. So this means that in average, you need 6 weeks to be able to write and pass your PMP exams. Now, for you to ensure that this is accurate, right, it will not make sense for me to ask Sunday and Richard and Titilola if they haven't been on that process before. So when you are doing your 3-point estimation, please ensure that you're asking the relevant party or you are getting the information from the relevant party. If Titilola and Sunday and Richard have written and passed their exams, and this is the feedback they have given me, then it is very relevant. Then for the beta distribution, the formula would be your optimistic plus 4 times your most likely plus your pessimistic divided by 6. So when you find this in your exams, you should be able to know how to answer this, whichever of the formula that is being required of you. So once we have We know all our activities from our WBS. We understand the dependency relationship between all our activities. We have estimated the duration for all our activities, and then we have okay, somebody's hands are up. Okay, just let me finish the slides for schedule, and then you can ask your question. So I think Udeme, please, and Clemens, just quickly put your questions in the comment box, or just have them with you. Once we're done, I will take all your questions, right? So once you have identified all your activities, you understand the dependency relationship between all the activities, and you've been able to estimate the duration for all your activities, then you need to find your critical path. Now, thank God for AI. Usually, because I have an MBA, and project management was a core part of it. And I remember how we had to do network diagrams that were so lengthy and quite complicated. But like, thank God for AI now. You can literally take all this information that I've said and put it in AI and tell AI to create the critical path for you, and AI is going to get that done. So life is becoming easier for us. But if you do not even understand that you need to know what your critical path is, you won't even ask AI for it. So why do we need to know our critical part, or what is even a critical part? So the critical part is gotten from what we call a network diagram. And everything I've said so far are the information necessary. You need to have all your activities, and then you need to have all your durations to help you create your network diagram. We're not going to discuss in detail how to create one, right, for the sake of this class. But you will need to use that to create your network diagram. In your exams, you will not be asked to create a network diagram, but you should be able to understand how to interpret one. So your critical path is usually the longest path in your network diagram. It is the longest part in your network diagram, and it tells you the shortest possible time it would take for you to finish your project. It is the longest part, but it tells you the shortest possible time it will take for you to finish your project. And how are you able to identify all the paths on your network diagram? You use your arrow. So from your start, you use the arrow to be able to identify your different paths. So here we have start, we have activity 1, activity 2, activity 4, activity 6. Now you see, if I don't understand, if I have not yet broken down all my activities, and I don't know the duration, and I don't know their dependencies, I will not be able to create my network diagram. So you have start, activity 1, activity 2, activity 4, activity C, and finish. This tells you one path. You have start, activity 1, activity 3, activity 5, activity 6, you have finish. So for this diagram, we have 2 paths. So you have to sum up the durations from your parts to be able to give you the total. So when you add for the first part, it gives you 14 weeks. So that's 6 plus 4 plus 3 plus 1 gives you 14. And then the second one would be 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 1 would give you 16. So it means that the second part is your critical part. Now, what does this even mean? It means that if any activity on your critical part delays, even if it's just by 1 day, it means that the entirety of your project would also be delayed. So usually we will say that there are no buffers, or we say that there is no float on our critical part. We don't have any buffer. But you can see that the activity on this first part have a buffer of 2 weeks. So how you find that float is by doing your subtraction. So if we have time, I'll play a video on critical part. So that's 16 minus 14 would give you 2. So while you are identifying your critical path, it's so that your eyes are fixated on those activities on the critical part because they cannot delay. Activity 2 can delay a bit, activity 4 can delay a bit, but you see, any activity on the critical part cannot delay. If it delays, it means that your project is going to delay, and that's why at this point the critical part becomes important. So once you've done all of these, then you can create your project schedule, right? So of course we all use different things. We use our our milestone charts, our Gantt charts. Now I mean we have tools like Asana and Trello, all of these to help us create our schedule. So that has made life much more easier, right? So then once that is done, then you are able to create your schedule. Now, how do you ensure that based on the activities that you have outlined and the resources to get the work done, how do you ensure that the resources are available per time so that you do not delay, or you don't have, you don't find yourself falling back on schedule because a particular resource is not available? And that is where your resource optimization technique comes in as a way of managing your schedule and managing the demand and the supply of your resources on your project. So there are two of these optimization techniques you can use. You can either smooth or you can level. And we are going to start from here, and I'll be able to explain what smoothing and leveling is. So this is our schedule. And every week we have a limit to work for 40 hours only. However, in week 2, we have overshadowed activities in week 2, which has exceeded our 40-hour limit. So what do we do? So at this point, you have two options. You can either level or you can smooth. So when you are leveling, what do you do? Now, how do you even know if leveling should be the technique to use? Leveling can be the technique to use when you don't when the resource availability is your main issue. So let's say, for example, we need Titilola is the one that has these activities, and Titilola may not be available to carry these activities in 40 weeks. And it's okay for us to extend the activity by an additional week. Maybe we have a buffer available. So our main concern here is the resource availability. Titilola is not able to be available to get the work done. So you use leveling when you are able to accommodate an additional duration, and your main constraint is resource availability. So what it means is that you will adjust the start and the finish times of your activities such that it stays within the 4 hours, and we're able to accommodate one more week, and Titilola is going to be available here to get the job done. So whenever you use leveling as a tool, it will always change, it will always increase the duration for your project. But this has to be fine with you. But when time is of the constraint and you do not have the availability of an additional week to get the work done, then you might need to use smoothing. And with smoothing, what you do is that you will just adjust your activity. So you have seen, for example, here, our week 4, we're not going to spend so much time. But we now adjusted this activity and moved it to week 4 so that we can still be able to accommodate everything in 4 weeks. So that means we might get people to work more hours in week 4 to help us accommodate this, this lack of, or this imbalance in our demand and our supply for resources. So whenever you have this issue with your schedule, you can always optimize or you can level your resources based on what you have available. Then we also have crashing or fast tracking. Now, when do you use crashing or fast tracking? When you find yourself behind schedule. You are behind schedule and you need to find ways to bring yourself back on schedule. You can either crash or you can fast track. What happens when you crash? Again, we'll use this picture. So this is the normal activity. One person is doing activity 1, another person is doing activity 2, and this is where we are supposed to finish. But this is the timeline that we have, not this. So what do we do to help us finish on time? So when you crash, what it means is, you are adding more resources into the project, maybe additional resources, getting people to work overtime, but you are able to add more resources into the project to help you finish on time. So here you see, instead of having one person, you have 2 people here and you have 2 people here, and we'll get the job done earlier. But the immediate impact of this is that crashing leads to additional costing. Because as you bring in more resources, or as you get people to work extra time, you have to pay them more money, right? And then another thing that comes with crashing is your risk, right? There might be increased risks every time you're bringing somebody that was not supposed to be there to get a tag done, because we are trying to quickly finish it. That on its own is a risk. So crashing brings about risk. Now, what happens when you fast track? When you fast track, you do not have the budget to bring up more resources. Even if you want to, you don't have the budget for it. So what do? You get people to multitask, to work in a parallel format. So this person is not done, completing task 1, but they already commenced task 2, and they are working on them in parallel so that they can finish on time. So what is the immediate impact of fasting and fast tracking and crashing? So what's the immediate impact of fast tracking? It would be that 1, it might lead to rework, because now you're making people to quickly rush on their work. So that on its own might lead to rework, or it can also lead to increased risk. So whether you crash or you fast track, both of them will always lead to increased risk. So those are things to note. So also, as the project is ongoing, you always have to consider special intervals like blackout times, the times when we're going live, so that you can have some buffer available. If it's going to take you 3 days, you might want to add another additional 1 or 2 days for your special intervals where they are available. And I'd explained this already for the Agile team. The Agile team do not estimate time, they estimate duration. So they can either use the Kanban approach or the Kanban approach or the time box approach. So time box approach, where we're working iteratively. Let's say we have a 1 week or a 2 week sprint, and that's what we're using to work. So in our planning, we break down our activities and then we get them done during our sprint. And then if we're using the Kanban approach, you know that we usually use a pull approach, where we move our activities from our to-do to our doing to our done, as team members get their activities completed as well. So this will sum up our schedule. So let's look at budget quickly, because I want us to be done within an hour, and then we can commence our Q&A. So of course, figuring out what your budget would be is key, and then learning how to manage your budget once that has been identified and officially approved is also important. And of course, how the Agile team and the traditional team manage their budgets, is a bit different. Like for the traditional team, their budget is fixed. So once our budget has been approved, the only way we can adjust our baseline is for us to do an official request when we feel that we might need more resources. But for the Agile team, when they are having their sprint planning, that is when they plan relating to their budget. How much are we going to use? And they will usually do that using their bond rate. So looking at, how much are we paying the team members And even for the activities that we are also getting done, how much are we using? So when you are creating a budget for your project, again, you would look at two areas. So I'll come back to this slide. I'll come back. So you will look at your resource costing. So the people that are working on the project with you, the different resources that you have identified. If you are working on, let's say, a website project, right? You have your developer, you have your UI UX designer, you have your content specialist, you have your graphics designer. How much are you going to pay each and every one of them based on their years of experience and the level of knowledge that they have? So that's one way you can look at it in terms of identifying the cost. You firstly look at the cost of your human resource. So like with the agile team, you are looking at, the salaries of the team members that you are working alongside supply. So once you've looked at the cost of your team members, you are able to say we are paying the developer $10,000 per month. We are paying the UI UX designer $5,000 per month. We call those individual cost estimates. And then look at that for your materials and your supplies and your equipment, and your IT tools, all the other things that you use aside from the human resources, right? So based on what is applicable for your project, you are also able to estimate the duration for materials, you're doing equipment, facilities, you put all of those together as well to be able to come up with the other costing. And like I said, we call them all cost estimates. And remember, if you're trying to figure out what those costings are, you can go back to those estimation techniques that we have spoken about already. So whether you're going to use your analogous or your parametric or your 3-point, whatever works for you, but you can definitely use those as well. Then you're also looking at your contingency reserve. So your contingency reserve is the money we keep aside for the risks that have already been identified. So if we have identified a risk and if the risk materializes, we might need more money. That is what we also keep as our contingency reserve. So the estimates for the people you're working with, the estimates for your materials, the contingency reserve, all of those are things you have to look at as well. Then when you're working, you must also check. And this is also where managing your resources becomes important. You must check because just because the management has approved $1 million for your project doesn't mean that that money is readily available for you to use, right? Most times you might need to request for that particular sum at interval because most organizations usually have a funding limit that is usually imposed by the sponsor. Just as a good way of ensuring that we are managing the organizational funding part time. Right, and so there is no, sporadic expense that is happening, or we are overspending against what we have planned to spend. And that's where, of course, the PM needs to constantly check. We're looking at their CPI, their SPI, their burn down to see that they are not spending more than they should per time. So constantly check to see what is the funding limits for the organization. Then you compare your expenses, and when you feel you will need them. For example, if you are paying your team members every end of the month, then it means that by the end of the month that there's a particular amount that you are going to pay. If you have a vendor that you've agreed on a 3-month contract on, then at the end of the 3 months, you will need that money available. So it's your responsibility to constantly check that the funding is available before you even get to the point where you need it. Right. So once you are able to identify all your cost estimates, right? So you've identified your estimate from the people that you are working with, your estimate from the materials and all, right? You put that together and that now sums up your cost estimate. So here you see we have work packages cost, activity cost, all of those are these little costs that I've just spoken about. And for each of them, you can see that they have their contingency reserve. So if you are trying to understand what your cost baseline is, remember your cost baseline is your approved version of your budget or of your costing, right? And this contingency reserve is even, the PM can always utilize it once a risk has materialized. So your work cost estimate and your contingency reserve make up your cost baseline. But there is one more component that we have to add up to give up our entire budget, and that is your management reserve. So your management reserve is, so usually if let's say the entire costing for your project is $100,000, most organizations have an amount. It might be 5%, 10%. I think most times it's ranging between 2 to 10%. So if the budget is $100,000, 10% of that can be management reserve. That money is not kept to the PM, it's kept with management. You can only utilize it when a risk that you did not identify, and therefore there is no contingency for it. When those unidentified risks, or we call them our unknown, when they materialize is when we use our management reserve. And usually you have to do an official request for management with the rationale before you are able to use it. So don't forget, your cost estimate and your contingency reserve will give you your cost baseline, and then your cost baseline plus your management reserve will give you the budget for your project. So right, so for the agile team, of course, their budgets are mostly done short term, right? When they are having their sprints, that's when they do their budget. They might have a high level budget, but it's for every time. Even if they have $1,000,000 to use, they will request for their budget per sprint. Once they are about to start a sprint, they estimate how much is going to cost for their man hours, and also for the materials or the supplies or the resources that they need to be able to give them the budget for their project, right? And of course, consideration is important when you're identifying, how much it's going to cost. Like I said, the team members, the man hours they are going to use, right? Their involvement, are they working part-time, full-time? How much are we paying them for that? And then if there are any resources that we need to use. And also know that the product owner is the one that manages our budget in the agile team. Then lastly, when you have budget challenges, especially for the traditional team, because once we set our budget, it doesn't change. So things can bring about budget change. Let's say that there was a new project requirement, a new risk, has come up, maybe even an economic factor, inflation rates, exchange rates, something outside the control of the organization. There are legit reasons why sometimes, we might need more money than we had planned for. So once that happens, you can always go through, the official change control process, right, to be able to, to request and address, those bonding issues, right? So if the budget is fixed and there is no money available, then you can always request for funding, but it has to go through the change control process. Please don't make any adjustment to your budget or even to your schedule without an approval from the change control process. So this brings me to an end, the end of, we've looked at building shared resources. We spoke about the importance of ensuring that there is a consensus, or at least some level of agreement amongst all the stakeholders, both internal and external, based on, what we're trying to achieve for the project. And I said, you can speak with the stakeholders, have workshops with them, engage them, look at your documents that you have available, like your feasibility studies and your business case, all that put together to help you have a consensus and an agreement, and then you can also create your charter. Then we also looked at scheduling, from your WBS to understanding your activities, their dependency relationship, their duration, their critical path, and then how to optimize your resources and also schedule compression techniques. And then lastly, we looked at budgeting, how in putting together your cost estimate, you're looking at human resources and other material resources, that might be applicable to your project, and then considering contingency reserves for the risks that you have identified. And then, of course, the management reserve. And remember that the management reserve, the PM doesn't have the power over it. It is with management. And when we need it, we can request. But for the contingency reserve, once those risks materialize, we are able to use them. So before we go into our Q&A, I'm going to give room for maybe 2 questions. So if you have any questions for me, now is the time to put your hands up. And then you can, and then I can take up your question. So I wanted us to finish in 1 hour. We're done in an hour, 6 minutes. So yeah, not bad. All right, so I'm opening the floor for questions. Please, if you have any questions, just raise your hands. And if you don't, then we can go into the Q&A session. I think I had 2 people whose hands were up earlier. I don't know if they still have questions for me. Okay. We have, I hope I'm pronouncing well, and to be terrible of me because I schooled in South Africa. Is this Tapelo? Tapelo, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I'm not, please correct me. All right. So I think, Mr. Nelson, maybe you can activate her mic. Okay, yeah, your mic. So go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I actually put my question on the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard you said yeah, you know that the critical path is usually the longest path, usually. Then I asked, is there a situation where this is not the case? Because my understanding is that it's always the longest path.
It is always the longest path. Thank you.
Okay.
It is always the longest path on your network diagram. Always.
100%. And then I wanted to just ask, is there ever a situation where you can ever have float on the critical path?
The critical path has a zero float policy, and that's why it always has a zero float policy.
Zero float.
That would be quite weird to have a float, but it is the critical path because it has zero float. So the critical path always has zero float.
100%.
That's even how you will know that it is the critical path.
100%.
Thank you so much, Tapelo. Do we have any other questions? Okay, let me check the comments. Maybe we had some questions there that I missed. Okay. My question is, for PMP exams on schedule, will the question specifically mention the method to use for the 3 points? Yes. The question will always specifically tell you whether you should use the triangular or the beta. It always states it. What major risks could impact the critical path? Well, it could be anything, right? If you have activities on the critical path, anything at all that could delay the activities from getting done, anything at all, whether it's even within your control or it's out of your control. And that's why when we are identifying risks, it's important that we are able to do our risk identification extensively. What are the things that could go wrong? And if they go wrong, how do we manage it? Maybe let us have some buffers available, right? So anything at all, it could be anything at all. It could be a strike action, it could be unavailability of a particular resource, it could be an internal delay within the organization, anything at all. Maybe, in fact, the resource that you need, and I'm not even speaking about the human resource, maybe there's a particular tool that you need to get a particular activity done that is not even available on time, right? So anything at all, and that's why you need to identify early what could go wrong with your critical path. And as a PA, constantly checking, right? If you are someone who looks at your risk register early, you should pick it up very early that this might go wrong. And that's why I always advise your risk register should be with you. Please look at it every day if possible, because you can go to bed and there is no risk or there is no issue, and you can wake up tomorrow morning and you have 2 or 3 or 4 risks that have just emerged from outside the organization. Okay, Stanley said, can I explain the difference between a charter and a project charter? They are exactly the same thing. A charter and a project charter are the same thing. The only thing that is different is what we call a team charter. And a team charter is different from, okay, I think now I can put on my camera a bit. I always like to see it because I feel it helps me engage better. So like a team charter might be a bit different because that is more focused on the team members, our ground rules, right? Our code of conduct, how we conduct our meeting, what are our core values, when we have conflicts, how do we manage it? Just more or less our ground rules that says this is how we are going to behave as a team. This is what is acceptable, this is what is not acceptable. And usually we will create our team charter during the forming stage of the project so that there is no assumption or people are not beginning to assume and behave in a way that doesn't work best for the project. So what I could differentiate is a team charter, but a charter, a project charter, that is the same thing. All right, so let's quickly go through our Q&A. I'll share some exam tips and then, yeah, we can bring the class to a close. Okay, so I hope I've addressed all the questions. So how we'll do the Q&A is I'll ask, and you can drop your answer in the comment section. But if you're ready to talk, and I love when people are willing to talk, especially when we have multiple answers, right? I can ask for people who have gone with option A to defend their answer and those who have gone with option B to defend their answer, and then we can see what the right answer is. So that would be our ground rules for the Q&A section as well. All right. So the first question, it says a project manager joins a project with the following features. It is a globally distributed team. They have a fixed budget and very tight deadlines. How can the project manager avoid scope creep and keep the team focused on delivering a product that meets requirements during planning? A, ask all the development team leads to prepare detailed requirements. B, hold daily stand-up with all of the development teams. C, put any changes to scope through the formal change request process. And then D, prevent stakeholder from direct interaction with the team lead. So what is your answer? Okay, so I've seen C. I've seen another C. Please, let's have a contrary answer now. Okay, we have a lot of C's. Okay, we have A. All right. C, C, C. Okay, everybody have said C, except Jan Paul. I hope I'm pronouncing your name well. Jan Paul Henry. You said the answer is A. I also have Amis. I hope I'm pronouncing your name well. You said the answer is A, and we have Dr. Ease who said the answer is B. So I need somebody that has said the answer is B, somebody that has said the answer is C and A to tell me why, and then we can go on with just put your hands up and I'll call you. Okay, we have Anissa. Anissa,
Hi, Esther. We lost you.
Hello. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so we had Anissa had her hands up. So I'm saying, Anissa, please go ahead. Are you picking A as your answer or C or B? Please go ahead and tell me the rationale for your answer. Anissa, can you hear me? Anissa Ahmed, your hands are up.
Yeah,
Okay.
the microphone is also activated. So Anissa, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, so we are not hearing from Anissa. Anybody else? Especially those that said, because I see the majority are saying C. So somebody else that have said the answer is B. Okay, oh, now we see I have Emmanuel who says the answer is B. Are you bold enough to defend your answer? I have Taiwo Alaba who said the answer is B. I have Dr. Ease who said the answer is B. Okay, I guess that people are not confident enough about their answer. Okay, so yep, the people who have said C, that would be the correct answer, especially when you're working on a traditional project and you want to ensure that you keep your you want to ensure that you know your budget sorry that you stay within the scope of your work, right? That you're not accommodating a scope of work that was not agreed upon in the first place. Okay, Tapelo, you have your hands up. Do you have a comment? You want to add on to it? You want to tell us your rationale? Please go ahead.
Okay, I had actually put C as my answer. However, I wanted to ask because the question says requirements during planning. That is where maybe the trick could be, and can that not put A more or less, you know, sort of, being one of the closest answers?
Well, yes, but there's just one thing that is off-putting about A, the development team lead. In our traditional project, now remember the question has clearly painted a traditional project approach, right? And when you hear the development team, what project does that tell you it is in?
Is an agile, yeah.
So that already can be an off-putting to A being an answer.
Okay.
So that elimination method, yeah, that can be a good way. All right, so let's move on. Question 2. A client is making a lot of small minor change requests, indicating that they are urgent and critical. What action should the project manager take? A, log each change request in the log. B, reject the minor changes. C, escalate the client's behavior to the sponsor because it is annoying. D, put the change request in the, okay, I think I made an error here by already putting the answer in the question. So give me a moment, but I still want to take up our answers. I hope I don't have that in my subsequent slides. Okay, no. Okay, apologies about that. I believe a lot of people did not see the answer, so let me still see your attempts. What would be your answer? You can post it in the comment section. Let's look at that quickly. Okay, I have A, I have D, I have D. Okay, I think D and A are winning. D, A, D. Okay, somebody says A and D. Interesting. Okay, one person have said A, and I need two people to tell me why. Can two people raise their hands, group A and group D, and let me know why? Okay, we have two people. Oh, now we have a lot of people. But I think Udemy, you had your hands up. Are you team A or are you team D?
Yeah, I actually went for A. Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone.
Yes, I can. Good evening. So explain yourself. Yeah. Why A?
Okay, yeah, so just like we've answered in the first question, all new changes must actually go through the change request process. The question did not tell us that the change was already approved. So because of that, we cannot start work when a particular change, either minor or major change, is not approved. So that's why I went for A and not D.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So who is team D? Maureen, Kifiwe, are you for team D? Who is for team D?
I'm sorry, I don't know where I'm grouped. I don't know where I'm grouped. I lost out at some point. But the justification for selecting A is I didn't select D. I selected A because I felt like D put the request in the iteration backlog, feeling like it's the product owner that puts items in the iteration backlog, but not the project manager, and it is project manager that is being referred to here. That's my opinion. Don't know if that is right or wrong.
All right. Thank you so much, Maureen. Kifiwe, are you team A or are you team D? We've gotten two options for team A.
Yeah, I think there's already a lot been said about team A, which is what I was going to agree with. I like what Maureen said about roles, but I also went for A, and that's because if it's in a log, then it gets to be assessed, it gets to be either approved or declined. So it gets like to be, literally assessed. We don't just put it in the iteration. So yeah, it's A, but I think everybody else gave really good answers. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Kifiwe. Barry, please tell me that you are team D.
No, I'm not team D. But team D would need the product manager. So I eliminated D, but I had A and D, but D I eliminated. I'm expecting the request to be made by the product manager. So I'm only remaining with A as a manager can do that.
All right, so thank you, everyone. But there's also something that I think I would like to also state for us to understand. In an agile project, change request is not something we use at all. So option B should not even be an answer, because in an agile project, the integrated change control process is not even something we have. We are very happy when changes happen. We welcome and we love when changes happen, because for us, it means new requirements has come in. So anytime you see a question that is speaking about the integrated change control process, please immediately know that this is a traditional approach question and not agile. And that on its own knocks off option D, right? This is clearly the only time in the agile process where we do not like for a change to happen is when a sprint has started, right? Once a sprint has started, within that sprint, even if there are new requirements, can go ahead and put it on the product backlog. And I also need to state that even though the product owner is in charge of the product backlog, it doesn't mean that other people cannot add items to the product backlog, but you have to add the items through the product owner because he's in charge of the backlog. So this answer cannot be D, because this is even talking about a change process. And in an agile project, that change process doesn't even matter, because we are happy about change and we welcome change. So that's just a tip to remember as well. All right, next question. The project management office wants to offer constant reporting across the dozens of agile projects running concurrently. They want to use the information radiators to share progress status and key lessons learned. How can this best be achieved? We have option A, option B, option C, and option D. So let's have your answers. Okay. Let's see your answers. Okay. Oh, so we have a lot of B, we have a lot of B, we have A, we have B, we have C, we have a lot of B. So again, I need justification. Why is the answer B? Because the question is asking two things. One, information radiator that is showing us two things: project status and key lessons learned. So those are the two things that you have to put into consideration when you are deciding the answer. So I need two people to tell me why we have a lot of B's. I need someone. Okay, we have A. Olusegun says A. Dan says A. Udemi says B. Please, two people can just volunteer. Team A and Team B. Let me know why. Tapelo, please go ahead. Are you Team A or Team B?
I've chosen B. The reason being, these are different sort of teams, and I will view them more as virtual teams, or virtual sort of, I'll say virtual teams. Therefore, I think a fishbowl window will address the fact that we've got different teams, not necessarily in the same sort of location. And then I think the Kanban boards, I think, and charts, I think will address, the information sort of requirements. I think that's how I thought about it.
Okay, so stay on the line, Tapelo. Would the Kanban board show you the progress status? And will it also show you the key lessons learned? Because remember, the question have said that those two things are important for the information radiator.
Yes, the Kanban board definitely will show the progress status. Yeah, maybe maybe the lessons learned might be the now I can see where you're going. Yeah, so maybe that is a shortfall of my answer. But I'm not so sure if there's a better answer than
B.
B, yes.
All right, thank you so much, Tapelo. Somebody else. Oh, now I'm seeing a couple of A. Please, the A team, can you tell me why it is A? Somebody, please. We don't have a lot of time. We have a lot of questions. Who in Team A can justify? Okay. We have Anissa and we have Felix. Please tell me you are Team A. If you are not Team A, please don't raise your hands. All right. So Anissa, I think your hands came up first and then Felix. So let's hear from you and then let's hear from Felix. Why A? Because I think Anissa has been trying to put her hand, I don't know how, his hands up for a while, but I think finding it difficult to unmute. Right, but you can feel free to type Anissa Ahmed. I'm so sorry. I think you're finding it difficult. But Felix, can you hear me? Oh, okay. I see
Loud
that.
and clear.
All right, Felix, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I chose option A simply because when works are being done on various remote projects, and we have different project team, using a monitor displaying feature can help to share the progress of each team. And we know the importance of burn-up charts. Of course, it shows project progress, what has been done. And then the retrospectives is also very important to address lesson learned. So from a project, it could either be after a particular milestone has been achieved. So this option fits it best because with that monitoring screen displaying those two items, it will be able to address the two issues that was raised in the question. That is the progress status and also the lesson learned.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellently said. All right. So I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to say after what has been said.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is Anissa. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that my mic is okay. I think I've solved the
Okay.
problem. So maybe going
Okay.
forward, I'll be able to address it. So I don't want to take up too much time. But yes,
Thank
I
you
agree
so
with what
much.
the other speaker just said, and I chose A as well, based on the same reasons that he gave. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, give me one moment, please. Just realized my laptop hasn't been charging. Okay, just give me a moment, please. So yes, A is the answer. I don't think I need to explain further. The burn down chart definitely solves the progress issue, but then for the information, the lessons learned issue, the digest of the retrospect, definitely. So always read the question before attempting to answer. All right, so we have this next question. A project is 7 months into execution. The project manager determines that the cost performance index is 0.80. According to the trend analysis, the CPI has a downward trend. What should the project manager do next? So what should the project manager do next? Let's have your answers in the comment section. All right, so we have of 8. Join, Abby, Soiway, Clement have said A, Tapelo have said A. Okay. A. All right, so if we do not have a contrary answer, we would go with that. Everybody have said A, so yes, A is correct. Oh, this is great. Well done, guys. Okay, the next question. The project manager learns that one team member needs to complete a critical task that is outside of the project, resulting in a scheduling risk for the project. How can the project manager eliminate this risk? So let's look at the options and let me get your answers. How can the project manager eliminate these risks? All right, we have A. Let's have more. I've only gotten one response. Okay, we have A. Okay, we have a B. We have A. Clements have said is B, but everybody else have said A. Okay, we have a D. All right, so we'll always speak to those who have a contrary option. So Maureen or Clement or even Ageji, if you are honest in Nigeria, we would say with your full chest. So if you can own your answer, will you put on your mic and explain? That's for, I mean, I'm not saying A is the answer, but I'm saying everybody else is saying A. And I'm seeing a few D and B's, which are outside the answer. So if you have said any answer outside of A, can you feel free to put on your mic and explain to us why it's D or B and it's not A based on what everybody else has said? Okay, that means that the people that have said B and D, they're not saying it with their full chest again, like we say in Nigeria. Right. So the best thing to do, especially as a agile leader would be, or even as just as a project manager, so that we're able to come to an agreement. Right? Let's sit down, let's discuss, let's agree, instead of just saying release the person. What the person is doing may not be relevant to the project, but may be relevant to something else within the organization. So A would be a better option to go with. All right, next question. Over the past 6 months, the cost per story in an Agile project A has risen by more than 250% due to a faulty platform which is no longer supported. The project team will exceed the budget increment threshold at the next iteration. Who should decide if the project should be cancelled? All right, let me have your options coming in. All right, yeah, Felix said negotiating is always a good option. Yes, I agree. All right, so we're having B, B, A, B. Oh, a lot of B's. Anissa, this time you've said A, which is a different answer from the rest. I don't even know what the answer is, but will you want to say why, Anissa, you said that the answer is A?
Sorry. I made a mistake. I actually meant to say product owner, not the head of business control. So sorry for that, but I changed my mind.
All right, that's fine. So a lot of answers is B, and yes, it is the product owner who has the right to tell us to cancel the project or even to cancel a particular sprint. Okay, this is an interesting question. A new product development team has the following characteristics. A, there are 3 main tasks. Task A must be delivered 4 weeks before task C starts. Task B is, once task B is finished, task C will start. What is the relationship between A and B? And this is a tricky question. It's those questions that, well, you just have to find the perfect answer that would go. All right. So what do you guys think is the answer? I've seen B and B. I'm not sure if that is from the previous answer. All right, so I've seen A from, okay, I've seen B. I like when we have contrary answers because it means that we can. Okay, I've seen A, I've seen, okay, I'm not sure what you're saying. Ageji, Kadiri. Okay. Oh, now we have contrary answers. We have A, we have B, we have D. So, but I think there are a lot of, oh, now we have C. Okay, so now we have to, I already knew that this question was going to be controversial, but oh well. The idea is to discuss it in case you find such in your exam. So again, please, 2 or 3 people with contrary answers, let me know why. So we literally had A, B, C, D as it is. So if you are team A or team B or team C or team D, please raise your hands up and let's discuss this. All right, Olusegun, please go ahead. what team are you and what's your answer? Hi, Olusegun. Please feel free to unmute your mic. Except if you're struggling to. Please, I need more people who would want to speak. Ageji Kadiri. Ageji Kadiri, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Please, if you can hear me, you can unmute your mic and speak. Mr. Nelson, I hope people are able to unmute their mics. Okay, I guess so. Okay, Anissa, do you want to try? I'm not able to hear from Olusegun or Ageji, so please go ahead.
Sorry,
okay.
it's from
Okay. Sorry.
All right, so let's hear from Anissa and then we hear from Ageji. Anissa, go ahead.
So my answer, I'm team A.
Okay.
Because well, task A, it says task A must be delivered 4 weeks before task C starts, which means that task A must finish before then the next task start. And then it also says once task B is finished, task C will start. So it seems to me it's like a finish to start. So one task must finish before the other one can begin.
Remember, Anissa, the question is asking what is the relationship between task A and task B? I can see a finish to start relationship, yes, but I'm literally seeing all of them gearing towards task C. And what is the relationship between A and B? So would that still be your answer?
Okay, now I'm seeing. Okay, I didn't take into consideration that, so
all right.
I'll let someone else just decide. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Ageji, yeah, I am Olusegun, please hold on. Okay, now that you can speak, I said Ageji shall go ahead. So after her, then we hear from Olusegun. Thank you. Ageji, please go ahead.
Please, it's an F finish to finish relationship because both tasks must end for C to start. A must finish and B must finish. So it's finish to finish.
Okay, interesting feedback. Thank you, Ageji. Olusegun.
Yes, I agree with her submission.
Thank you. All right, you agree with her mandate. Cool, cool, cool. Felix, do you have a different answer?
To be honest, if there's a different option there, I would have gone for it.
I know. I was waiting for somebody to say that.
The reason being the question itself did not state if there is a relationship between task A and task B, because there's no mention of that in the question. Okay. But I think for task A and task C, we can say it is finished to start because A must be delivered before C can start. And task B and task C as well is also finished to start. But then the question is asking between task A and task B. There is no mention in the statement if there is any relationship between them. But if we create a scenario in our mind that it is A, B, and C, then we can also say it is finished to start. My opinion, though.
Thank you, Felix. Interesting. Okay, let's hear last from Tapelo and then we move on from the question. Tapelo, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was leaning more towards A because first I define A to C is definitely finished to start A to C. But then, B finishes immediately before C, which means it could technically be between A and C. And okay, let me finish. And then it can be a finish to start, maybe even with a lead. That's why I was leaning more towards A.
Okay. Quite tricky, right? Quite tricky. And when I saw this question, I was like, the answer isn't here really, because I don't see a relationship between A and B. which is what the answer could typically be. But if there is anything at all linking them together, would be that A and B must finish before C can start. So even if A finishes earlier, let's say A finishes in 4 weeks and B finishes in 6 weeks, task C still can't start until those two tasks have actually finished, like when we looked at the network diagram. So yes, this is a tricky question. I agree that it doesn't directly answer, but you can find this. I mean, this question is directly from the PMI practice question. So you could find this. And yeah, I did say that there is no direct relationship between A and B, to be honest, but both of them need to finish before A can start. So if there would be any form of relationship between them, it would be a finish to finish. But this is a tricky question. I still left it on the slide, you know, just in case you find something this tricky in your exams, you are still able to maneuver and answer it. Okay, we don't have a lot of time. Let's move quickly. A company is planning to utilize a new product that leverages innovative technologies and processes. The project manager has verified that the components work package have been defined and constraints for each component. Which estimation technique should the project manager use to obtain a precise cost estimate of the project? Analogous, 3-point, bottom-up, parametric. Okay, now let's see the first ones. Okay, I've seen C, C, C. All right, Alex. Okay, I'm seeing C. I'm just going back because of Felix. Okay, I've seen a lot of C as the answer. Okay, so I want to believe that Felix has done what he needs to. All right, so yes, C is the answer. Well done, everybody, for your attempt. We do not have a contrary answer. Okay, let's do this calculation very quickly. A project manager is certain. And also, I think that was something I was going to say, but then I forgot. If for any reason, because somebody had asked this question, if for any reason you are not told what formula to use, please always use the triangular, just in case it's not being said, just use the triangular, all right? A project manager is uncertain about the duration of a project for a new product and consult several groups of subject matter experts. The first group advises 40 days, the second groups have said 60 days, and the third group has said 20 days. What is the estimated duration for the new product? So this doesn't even tell you that you're even supposed to use a 3-point estimation. So basically you are supposed to figure out that you should use a 3-point estimation. So let's do our calculation quickly. What will be the answer? Quickly. Okay, I'm having B. Okay, I need more answers. B. I need 2 more. I need 2 more answers. B for Maureen. All right, great. B. So B, it's correct. All right, so next one. Similar question, but this does say she's a triangular formula. So we have the first option, 29 days, we have 46 days, and we have 18 days, right? Using the triangular estimation technique, what would be your response? So again, let's quickly see your answers. All right. Okay, gotten a lot of B's. All right, cool, B. Then we have 2 more answers to go, and then we're done. A startup has grown quickly, and there are now 4 agile teams working on interrelated products. All teams have begun to experience impediments and gaps related to working in other teams. How should the project manager address this problem? Eliminate dependencies between teams, favor collaboration tools over meetings, implement a Scrum or Scrum layer, merge into 2 large teams to reduce stress. What will be the best option for the project manager to take? Okay, let me see our answers. Okay, I've seen a couple of B, I've seen C. Okay, now I've seen so many answers. I've seen A, I've seen B. By the way, this is just something to say. Remember we said, who can remind me of the very first, value of Agile? Somebody can just quickly remind me. What's the very first value of Agile? Who can remind me of that? Anybody? What's the very first amongst the 4 Agile values? What's the first one? Ha! You guys are writing your exams soon, no? Clement, what's the first one? Clement, go ahead. What's the first value of Agile? Okay, I don't know if... Okay, Barry, go ahead. I think Clement is struggling.
Is it value? Deliver value?
Yes. Yeah, what's the first? We have 4 values of Agile. What's the first one?
I wanted to, the first one is to make sure you're delivering value. Yeah.
Yes. No, Barry, that's not the first value of Agile. Yes, Udeme, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Individual and interaction.
Over process and tools, right? So who are those saying B? Because that kind of takes away the first value of Agile, and that's why I brought it up. Remember when we say that we are people who have the Agile mindset, let the Agile mindset reflect. You have to internalize, let it reflect in the way you make decisions. So that automatically makes B a no, right? So because we don't have so much time, I will just address it. The best option to go with is C, that you should implement is Scrum of Scrums. Now, what is Scrum of Scrums? When your Agile team is kind of becoming too large and, work can just be a little bit all over the place, so many people are doing so many work, it could lead to disconnects, the collaboration might be lower and the communication too might be starful. So what we usually do is to break you further into what we call a Scrum of Scrum. So we can break the team a lot more further into different subcommittees or sub-teams. Then each team would have their own Scrum Master. They will have their own team. They will have their own Scrum Master and their own development team. Then whenever we are trying to have a meeting to understand progress of work, it will only be the Scrum Masters from the related group that will come and represent their own team members. So that way we are able to address issues amongst our team, and then those who are the Scrum Masters representing the subcommittee of Scrums they will only be the ones representing within that meeting. So we'll have just 4 people and we will not feel so overwhelmed because there is a lot of us. So I know maybe some people don't know what Scrum of Scrum is, but that would be the best answer. Okay, our final question. We have, oh my God, we have 5 more minutes. Final question. During initiation, the project manager conducts stakeholder analysis. What is the most effective approach to ensure share the understanding of the project objectives. A, share the, oh my God, I don't know why I do that. Why I'm mistaking. Because I had to work on this today. Just give me a moment. I just realized that the answer is on the screen. Not clearly on the screen, but yeah, the smart ones will pick it up immediately. All right. So let's attempt this quickly. But let me see your answers in the comment section. All right, I've seen B. Cool. So B is the right answer. All right, so just a few exam tips. Please feel free to connect with me. I'm very passionate about people writing and passing their PMP exams, so I'm always very happy to connect with PMs. So there's only one exam tip I want to share, and I feel that sometimes we don't talk about that a lot, and that will be managing your time when you're writing. Now, it seemed like, oh, the exams is over 4 hours, like there's a lot of time. But we actually don't have a lot of time, because for one question, you have about 1 minute, 20 seconds to attempt it and finish in good time. So one of the tips I would usually advise PMs when they go into the training would be, before you go into the exam hall, break down your time. So what our advice is 1 hour, because the questions come in a set of 60, 3 sets of 60, then 10 minutes break, which is optional, another 60, then 10 minutes break. So what I'll usually advise the team would be that you should break your sections into for the first 60 minutes, you have 1 hour, 15 minutes. For the next 60 minutes, you have, for the next 60 questions, sorry, you have 1 hour, 15 minutes. And for the final one, you have 1 hour, 30 minutes. Yeah, 1 hour, 30 or 20 minutes. Now, why do I advise this? I've seen people write the exams and fail because they didn't have sufficient time to attempt all the questions, right? So if you want to avoid this, one of the ways you can avoid it is by ensuring that, you manage your time well. So for the first 50 minutes, try and attempt all the 60 questions. When you read a question once and twice and you are not sure of the answer, just select the one that you think is the right answer. There is a place on the platform that allows you to keep a question under review. Once you click for the platform to keep the question under review, everything immediately becomes, it becomes yellow. So that question will be flagged as a yellow question. So read the question once, twice, you are not sure, select what you think is the right answer, keep it under review and move on. So that if you have an hour, 10 minutes, in 50 minutes or 45 minutes, you would have attempted all the 60 questions. And then you can take a breather. You have additional 20 minutes to now go back to only the questions that you are not sure of, right? It means that if you have 60 questions and you've gotten, let's say 45 correctly, the 15 that you are not sure of, you now have additional 20 minutes or additional 10 minutes to now take a breather and now go through them for the second time, considering that you have 20 minutes. So this way you are able to stick within the time, because even if you decide to spend 3 hours on one section, it's okay. Nobody is going to flag it, right? It is totally on you. So learn how to manage your time, segment your time. The moment you sit, tell yourself, I have only 60 minutes for this section. I have only 60 minutes for this section. I have 30 minutes and maybe another more for the final section. And why I will say give time to the final section, because sometimes you're already tired, right? You're feeling a little bit of a mental strain, so you might need more time to finish. All right, so I'll stop here. Thank you so much to everybody. I totally enjoyed teaching this class, and I wish you all the very best. as you write, please feel free to connect with me. I'm happy and I'm more than willing to, to provide support. So yes, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys on LinkedIn. Yes, thank you. All right, so over to you, Nelson. Thank you so much for the time. I'm looking forward to my next section. All right.
Thank you so much, Esther. This was really, really well delivered. Thank you so much. And I'm very sure that the candidates would say the same thing. So thank you so much for just putting in this time and just delivering this session for the past 2 hours. So I wouldn't want to take more time here. One last thing that I would like to say is, please, if you haven't booked your exam yet, set your exam date yet, go ahead and do that. Once you do that, you have a target date that you're working with, other than leaving it open-ended. This is a consistent message that you'll hear from me, and you'll hear from even the instructors that we have as well here. So thank you for showing up today, or to all the candidates. We hopefully will have another session on Thursday if we get an English speaking instructor. If not, I will communicate, and we will have another session on Tuesday as well, same as this. The recording will be shared tomorrow. We'll post it in the WhatsApp group. If you are yet to join, we'll share a link on the chat as well, and you'll be able to join in. You can reach out to Esther directly, connect with her on LinkedIn, and on email she's provided. Reach out to her if you want to get a personal walk with her, so that she can handhold you even as you prepare to sit for your exam. And yeah, let's interact. You can reach out to me anytime on WhatsApp, and even here on the chat as well. But have a good evening wherever you are, good afternoon, and see you in the next one. Thank you. So the WhatsApp group link is on the chat.